It is the Doomsday Podcast. Matt Mosley, Ed Werder, in the aftermath of the Cowboys' dominating win over the Las Vegas Raiders, 33-16. And Cowboys down there going for it on fourth down, decided not to kick a field goal, whatever. They were just kind of at the end. I mean, the Raiders couldn't do much of anything. But, Ed, I do think the overwhelming story in the post-game coverage, the pre-game coverage, everything building up to this one. And you and I remember the death of a player back in, I guess it was a 2012 season when Jason Garrett was coaching. Jerry Brown was killed, and Josh Brent, his teammate, was at the wheel and was driving while intoxicated in that wreck. But in this, this tragic death of Marshawn Nealon, it was always going to be interesting to see like how the Cowboys channeled that, how they honored him. The NFL continues to do a nice job, and so at the game they honored him. But Ed, with the jersey being there on the sideline, with it being in the locker room, with the decals with his number on it, and then Dak talking to all the media and ESPN and everybody else after the game. This was a team that was playing for something sort of bigger than just a regular game and wanting to honor their fallen teammate. And Ed, I know it's the Raiders, and we're not going to pretend that this is some kind of great team that they beat. But for one night, thought the Cowboys did everything they needed to do, and were able to honor Marshawn Nealon in an appropriate manner.
Yeah, I think a couple thoughts occur to me, and I covered the team quite a bit during the week leading up to the game after the tragic death of Marshawn Nealon at age 24 in just his second season, which, began with his first career sack in week one. And in the last game that he would ever play, winds up scoring a touchdown on a blocked punt that he recovered in the end zone in a loss to the Cardinals. So it's been an emotional week for the team, 10 days, the bye week, having that extra time to process their grief and work through it, I think was really helpful and meaningful. A couple things that really stood out to me in leading up to the game is how fortunate the Cowboys have been to have Brian Schottenheimer leading them through this. I think he wanted to create one of the great cultures in American sports, and he's gone about beginning that process by creating real relationships with the players, and he's been really authentic through this whole thing. And I think that has been the right approach. And then beyond that, from a player standpoint, you had Dak Prescott and Solomon Thomas, two veteran players, leaders on your team, offense and defense, who have endured, suicide, losing a sibling to suicide, and creating foundations to create awareness and suicide prevention. So they're somewhat educated on the subject. And, Dak said something that really resonated with me, in that he said, the hardest days I had in the aftermath of Marshawn Nealon committing suicide were the days where I didn't have my teammates, when I was alone. When we were all brought together, it seemed somewhat easier. And, Solomon Thomas, I asked him, how do you escape the grief and play a game? And he said, you don't escape the grief. You don't even try to escape the grief. You live with the grief. If you try to run from it, it gets bigger and it affects your performance, even more. So yeah, it's been a very challenging thing for them. And it came at a time when, they're trying to incorporate two new players they acquired in trades. They're trying to get two other players on defense who have been out injured back in the lineup. And to manage all of that and go out and play as well as they did, arguably their best overall game of the year, I think says a lot about the coaching staff and the leadership within this team.
All right, and we'll talk about another interesting factor in this game when you and I were kind of trying to monitor. You were, I'm certain, kind of watching the main broadcast in tonight's game, and I was, of course, watching the Manning cast because I like watching. George W. Bush was on there, and that was pretty amazing guest, honestly. And so very interesting. Some of the things that I came up with from that. And then I just think there were a lot of things to talk about in this game, not the least of which was the Cowboys, one of the top receiving duos in the game, did not start on the first series. And we'll certainly hit that, and two sort of different explanations given for that. I thought the funniest was Pickens. Pickens, have you seen his explanation?
They went to heavy personnel because they wanted to run the football, so they had Cavante Turpin and Ryan Flournoy.
Yeah. He could barely deliver that with a straight face. He was just like,
were the starting receivers. Yeah.
We wanted to go heavy with that deal. All right, it is time, and we'll hear from Glenn Stretch Smith in a little while. In fact, look at that, Ed. I'm going to turn some light on the subject here. Light myself up a little bit more. Ed, you look nice and bright there. Ed, whatever way you just went, I like that. You just put yourself right back in the middle of the screen. I like that. Okay, it is time for the Doomsday Podcast. I would like to ask the Z-Man, Zach Burke from Rogue Media Network, please play the music. All right, Ed, let's start where we were just talking about the wide receivers for the Cowboys. I mean, first of all, George Pickens just lit up the Raiders. I guess the only thing he did wrong was emulate. He basically copied what Jamison Williams did for the Detroit Lions. It got him an unsportsmanlike penalty and led to a missed extra point on the Sunday night game. And for some reason, Pickens decided to do that for a touchdown celebration. But Ed, how many catches? He had 9 catches, 144 yards, and a touchdown. But the story was that both those players had to sit out the first series. Brian Schottenheimer said they missed some things. They missed some things this week. Ed, you've probably been asking around. Who knows? I guess it wasn't serious enough to warrant missing another drive, because it was the Cowboys did not do well on those very early, but once they got those guys in, they had a great night.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to dismiss it, now that they performed the way they did and the Cowboys won the game decisively. But, you're looking at a situation where your team's grieving the loss of Marshawn Nealon. You've got coaches who are dealing with that and trying to, help players process that and get a team emotionally and mentally prepared to play. Like I said before, they're incorporating some new players, some injured players back to the lineup. And you're coming off 2 losses. And to have 2 prominent players like George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb warrant disciplinary action for whatever reason there was, it's really, unprofessional and shouldn't happen. But as it turned out, Pickens and Lamb had their best game as a duo, 210 combined receiving yards, their most in a game this year. And it's the first time this season they both caught a touchdown pass in the same game. And as far as Pickens missing the first series, it set him up for a place in history in that he's the first Cowboys player since at least 1991 with 100 receiving yards in the first half of a game he didn't start. He found a way to use his misconduct, shall we say, as a historic milestone.
Who would that have been, man? Who would that have been? Kevin Williams or maybe I was thinking about Kmart. Who would have been the last one not to start, but then end up over 100 yards? Maybe Irvin was benched to starting.
Well, there was a game that he didn't go to in Detroit because he had to fly on his own. He missed the flight, and so Jimmy held him out for a period of time. But I kind of thought that was more 1992, but I could be mistaken on my dates. But, I think the thing that people walk away with when they watch Dak Prescott operate the offense with these 2 receivers is, this was Dak's 80th career win as a starting quarterback, only Troy Aikman with 94 and Roger Staubach with 85, both Super Bowl winning Hall of Famers, have more victories in Cowboys franchise history. But, Dak completed 76% of his passes, 268 yards, 4 touchdowns, 4 different receivers. I think the thing that people wonder is what can happen that would allow the Cowboys to keep George Pickens beyond this year, which you would think, given they surrendered 2 draft picks to Pittsburgh to acquire him, that you want to get more than 1 year out of him. But his performance is so beyond expectations that it's reasonable that he's going to command something close in the open market, should he get there, to what CeeDee Lamb's making at $34 million a year.
Maybe,
which,
yeah.
When he signed last year, was one of the third highest paid non-quarterback in football. They could franchise tag him for about $28 million. But is there some kind of solution? I believe, and this is just me basing on conversations I've had in the locker room, I believe that Dak would be willing to make this such a priority signing that he would be willing to modify his own contract to accommodate George Pickens. And I think he also believes that maybe Pickens likes the fit here, likes the offense, likes the opportunity to play with a stable quarterback based on, that being different from what he experienced in Pittsburgh, and his productivity, his role, the camaraderie here, that maybe he would take a little less to play in Dallas. Maybe he won't. Maybe he'll go for the top of the market. And if that happens, then I think the Cowboys would have to franchise tag him to keep him.
All right. And I mean, I did find it funny. I was going to read this to you because I was watching after the game. I'm sure Troy Aikman and Joe Buck love doing an entire game, and then they have to turn around right after that and be back on to do an interview with SVP. But I mean, I don't know. Troy is making probably somewhere 17 to 20 million a year, so he's probably okay doing that. He, for some reason, and I'm sure maybe, who knows, SVP was really banging the drum on like somehow the Cowboys being a frightening team, the way they played against the Raiders, and that they could they play their way back into the playoff conversation. And he said to Troy Aikman, ask if it's reasonable to think that they could be in the playoff conversation with so many big like home games coming up or whatever. And Troy just deadpanned, reasonable is a stretch.
Well, we do have to keep it in perspective. I mean, they're 4-5-1. They are finally in the plus column as far as point differential. They finally have scored more points than their defense has allowed by 3. But you look at the teams that they've beaten, they have no quality wins still. They beat the Giants, who have 2 wins. They beat the Jets, who have 2 wins. They beat Washington, which has 3 wins. And they beat the Raiders, who have 2 wins. Now, if they're legit and they go, beat the defending Super Bowl champion Eagles this Sunday, and then they, 4 days later turn around and beat the team that opposed them in the Super Bowl in the Kansas City Chiefs, and then they win against Detroit, well, then maybe they got something. But we got to see them beat some quality teams before we think this is a playoff team.
I think so. And let's keep in mind that this is not a good, Raiders team. They're 2-8. They've got a good, the Manning boys were basically saying to Ed, just throw it to Bowers. They thought the only solution for the Raiders was to throw it to Bowers every down. Just keep throwing it to him throughout the game.
Well, they did throw almost every down in the first half. 28 passes to 4 runs. You have Ashton Genty, the number 6 overall pick in your backfield. And you got Geno Smith throwing at age 35 on almost every snap.
The Cowboys have such a great run defense now.
You don't even want to try it. Don't even try it.
Why would you even test that? Why would you? Ed, come this way to me. I want to be able to see you. That's where I want you. Yes, thank you. You were going away. It's coming into your living rooms as we speak. So I would say, but let's talk about that defense for a minute, Ed. Okay. Quinnen Williams was awesome. He stepped into the, and of course it's just interesting because you're like, 92. okay, there he is. And he was everything you could have possibly wanted. He was bull rushing. He affected the pass rush. He had a sack and a half. He had several pressures. And you probably have the numbers, but I mean, he was, and of course, his presence helped other players like Houston seemed to be in on a sack. Kenny Clark got in there and got a sack. Quinnen Williams, to me, was the best player. Osa got one. You're right.
Raku got a safety.
Yes. But Quinnen Williams, to me, was the best player on the field for the Cowboys.
He was the best player on the field for either team, and his final numbers were a sack and a half, 3 pressures, and 5 quarterback hits, all season highs for him in his first game in a Dallas uniform. And it's interesting to me, if you look at the composition of this team, the Cowboys are built now in a way that nobody else is on defense, and this was their best defensive performance of the season, 4 sacks, an interception, a safety. But they are unique in that they have 3 defensive tackles, Oso Digizua, Kenny Clark, acquired from Green Bay, and now Quinnen Williams, acquired from the Jets, who all make $20 million a year. No other team in the league has 3. Only one other team has 2 players at that position who make $20 million a year. So that's another challenge that they're going to face this offseason. But obviously, it's a huge priority for the Cowboys, even more than edge, because they traded one of the generational edge rushers of all time. And 2 of these players were acquired potentially in trades related to that one. Odigizua, they signed to a big contract extension as an offseason priority. Then they trade Micah Parsons, and they get back Kenny Clark, defensive tackle. And then they trade a first-round pick for Quinnen Williams. So they've made a huge investment in the defensive tackle position. And that doesn't even represent spending a first-round pick on Mozzie Smith, who was swapped out for Quinnen Williams. So no other team in football has taken this approach where the value on the defense and the identity of the defense is in the interior defensive line rather than at the edge positions.
And Ed, Malik Hooker, I don't know if people totally knew how important he was to this defense until he wasn't there for a pretty good stretch. He was back in there. Wilson, Bell ends up making the interception. Murray, who everybody was ready to go, please get him off the field, was the one who dropped back and tipped that ball that led to the interception. So I thought Logan Wilson played fine, looked okay, in coverage. I thought Caleb Carson had the best game of his career. He was number 21 out there. I thought he played really, really well. And then Bland just played big. He even made a couple of plays on Bowers, who was obviously the Raiders' best option on offense, since they don't even like to involve Genty, even though they put a premium pick on him. I thought Bland looked really good. And Ed, the secondary, this is really the best we've seen them in some time. And even Siobhan Ravel. Now, Ed, you'll have to tell me what you saw from him, because I can't say that I really was able to zero in on him too much, but he did at least get on the field at some point there in the first half.
Yeah, for the first time in his NFL career. He hadn't played in like 400 days since he, injured his knee in college. Nick Saban told the Cowboys that he viewed him as the best NFL prospect at the cornerback position. When you look at him at practice, he's got a phenomenal build, long arms, long legs, super fast, covers a lot of ground. But he played a limited number of snaps. I don't know that he did anything particularly outstanding, but he looks like a player. Like, he looks like what a guy should look like at that position. He looks a lot like Diggs, quite honestly, at that position, but maybe a little bit smoother, a little faster. We'll see. But I think for the first time, Matt Eberflus has a legitimate abundance of talent to work with on that side of the ball. The sad thing is, I remember I said this on TV tonight. Last year Mike McCarthy was complaining about the fact that they didn't get all their players signed in time for the start of the offseason program in April, that ideally, a coach likes to have his full team together and getting ready to go through the offseason in April, then training camp and the preseason, and then the regular season. And here we are in November, and the Cowboys are still incorporating key players to the defensive side of the ball. I mean, it's insane what Brian Schottenheimer has had to deal with from a roster composition personnel standpoint.
Yeah, and DeMarvion Overshone returns to the lineup, and so good to see him out there running around. And Ed, as you know, I mean, it was probably too much to think, oh, he's going to be some kind of immediate Pro Bowl type presence, but I think it was important for him just to get on the field. And you said however many days that was for Ravel. It had been a lot of days since Overshone had been on an NFL field. And I mean, my gosh, it had to be 250 days or 300, whatever.
More than that, I think it was December 9th. So
okay,
3 weeks away
300
from the full year. Yeah.
So been a long time for him as well. And so, everybody, for the most part, I mean, the defense did look different. Again, we have to caution folks that it's the Raiders, and it's, they're no great shakes, and they're not a good offense. And the nice thing the Cowboys did is, they played even when the Raiders were moving the ball, held them to field goals, kept it to 24-9. They were able to get one right before the half. I mean, Ed, back to I wanted to jump back on offense real quick. I mean, it's just when you said maybe Pickens has exceeded their expectations, I totally agree with that. It's kind of crazy because, I mean, CeeDee Lamb still the number one wide receiver, but tonight, and we haven't seen it a ton this year, but to get both of them on the same field at the same time, it's scary. Pickens is so imposing physically that they couldn't bring him down. And then in the open field run after catch, yak, we like to call it, Ed, he had 75 yak yards tonight. And on that one play, catches the ball and he's going in for, looks like they would get him at some point, and he just puts that hard little move. I don't know what you call that. With a running back, you say put his foot in the ground. I mean, it was so smooth and it was so fluid, but yet it threw off the entire Raiders defense. He sort of plays with a physicality that not many we've seen, right? Maybe Dez, DK Metcalf certainly has that, but we haven't seen that sort of level of physicality very often.
Devontae
I guess maybe
Devontae Adams is that kind of receiver.
Yeah, T.O. had that to a certain extent.
But I do remember, to your point, the offensive coordinator Clayton Adams at one point earlier this year talking about Pickens and what they thought they were getting versus what they found they had. And one of the things he mentioned was you don't usually see a guy with his build be able to create a lot of yards after the catch. And like you said, we've seen that tonight, and we've seen it several times. And, I think he really – I don't even really know that Dak was sure that he was a legitimate number one receiver until he did what he did when CeeDee Lamb was out with that high ankle sprain for those 3 or 4 games. And he clearly demonstrated an ability to line up at different positions, run all the different routes in the route tree, and to, put up numbers that help the Cowboys compete in games or win games in a couple of those situations, tie a game maybe against Green Bay. Mm-hmm. But yeah, don't think Dak was sure until he saw him perform during that stretch of games without CD of what exactly he was fully capable of doing.
Dak, we talked about it. Dak showed a lot of leadership, certainly on the sideline tonight. Talking to the team beforehand, going out there. You mentioned it, what he's gone through with losing his brother to suicide. And then Solomon Thomas had incredible words this week, and he didn't even suit out for the game and wasn't able to play because of injury. But I think he showed a lot of leadership. Dak then went out and played really well, did have the fumble, but they overcame it pretty quickly. And Dak ends up having a great game. And now, Ed, you probably have it in front of you. He's had 3 touchdown games, and that puts him in kind of rarefied air in Cowboys history. And maybe does that move him past the great Romo? I happen to see that there was something floating around there. You're usually our are great stats, man. But anyway, his 3 touchdowns in this game. He now has that many, and that's he's moving up the ranks in terms of all-time Cowboys. But Ed, the main point I'm making is he just played within himself, played extremely well, made great throws. I thought the play calling was good. And I thought from an emotional standpoint, and you got to kind of watch it, how do you ride the emotion? How do you honor Marshawn Nealon? How does that translate? What does that look like? Where I kind of saw it, like visceral responses, was from the head coach. Like when they went for it on 4th and 2 down there around the goal line and got the shot to Ferguson, Shoddy kind of went nuts. And I mean, I'm not saying he's not somewhat emotional guy, but like he was way into it. And then, of course, you saw the coaches with the Marshawn Nealon shirts that they were wearing that had his picture on it, and then said, his the year he was born and obviously when he died. And Ed, I thought that, I was thinking back, I don't remember seeing NFL coaches wearing something like that. I mean, we've obviously seen tragedy in the past, but that's something I can't really remember. And I just think, as you said to start today's program, podcast, I think Schottenheimer really set the right tone and then delivered on everything.
Yeah, no question. And the stat you were looking for is Dak has 41 career games with at least 3 passing touchdowns, moving him ahead of Tony Romo for the most 3 touchdown games in franchise history. He also has 4 passing touchdowns tonight, and he has 13 games with 4 or more touchdown passes. That's the most in franchise history and tied for the 7th most in an NFL player's first 10 games. So the fact that, Dak has surprised us in so many ways. I think when he was drafted, he was a dual threat quarterback from Mississippi State, and he was a shotgun quarterback. We didn't really ever think that he would evolve into one of the premier pocket passers in franchise history and in the NFL. But he's done all that. And I think his partnership with Schottenheimer, you mentioned how well he's handled. I think he's handled this exceptionally well. And if you look at it from the standpoint of, hey, this guy got promoted to be a head coach for the first time in his career. And on top of that, he's calling plays for this organization and this quarterback for the first time since he joined the organization. And, the defense has been an epic, colossal disaster. And he's had to spend a lot of time trying to solve those problems with that side of the ball, and now help a team navigate a tragedy like this. I mean, I don't think you can really say enough about what the guy's done, even though he's only won 4 games.
Yeah, that is, you're right. He's got a lot on his plate, and we're not ready to start calling him Mr. Fix-It yet, but he's acquitted himself well, and we'll see where this continues. Ed, you've got 6:30 a.m., you'll be featured on WFAA. I know you and Stretch both were, some of the pregame festivities tonight as this game. But Cowboys on Monday Night Football for 2 straight times. They had the bye week, of course, and the last time that happened, that a team played for 2 consecutive times on Monday Night Football, was the Raiders in 1996. The Raiders split those 2 games. And so we all know the Cowboys have split those 2 games as well. The Cowboys get their 51st all-time win on Monday Night Football. Ed, thank you very much. We're going to do some stretch plays. I appreciate it, sir.
We'll see you in the press box for the Philly game on Sunday.
That sounds great. We are the countdown has begun. Philly coming up, and we appreciate Ed Werder and
football season is in full swing, and Underdog is the best place to get in on all the action. Playing on Underdog is easy. Just pick whether your favorite players will go higher or lower on stats like rushing yards, receptions, touchdowns, and more. You'll get your picks right, and you could win up to 5,000 times your cash. Download the app today. Sign up with promo code Doomsday. to score $100 in bonus funds or entries when you play your first $5. That's promo code Doomsday. Underdog, make picks, win money. Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details. Offer not valid in Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
Now it is time to welcome in. It is Stretch Plays. Glenn Stretch Smith waiting in the wings as we speak. And, oh, great, man, the transitions. It's almost like he's back on WFAA and he's with like Joe Trahan or somebody extremely smooth like that as we bring Glenn Stretch Smith, former Cowboys scout and coach, onto the show. Stretch, great to have you. You saw how Jason Garrett handled tragedy going back. My gosh, it's been about 13 years ago with the death of Jerry Brown and what happened with Josh Brent at the wheel for that. I would say the buildup, the way they handled it, the way they honored Marshawn Nealon, extremely difficult thing. I know you've been on coaching staffs and have been a scout probably during weeks where you had to handle something outside of football, really difficult like that. But it really did seem like Schottenheimer did a nice job in the coaching staff of getting this team ready to play with all the adversity they were facing.
Yeah, and you saw him sit out his top two receivers because wherever the story comes from, hey, they may have missed something or late for something. So you know what, I thought he did an incredible job of getting his team ready to play, getting his team focused to go to Las Vegas, sit in a hotel all day. It's not easy to do, and go play a complete football game, which is for the first time this year, I can arguably say this is complete a game as the Cowboys have played.
All right, and they win it 33-16. I mean, I think Stretch, it's worth, after the game, SVP on ESPN was trying to suggest, this team may be able to, they're going to be frightening, or they may be able to get in the playoff conversation. And Troy Aikman, someone you're very close to and have been great friends with for many years, and you were on staff there when Troy was playing, when asked if that was reasonable, Troy said, as only Troy could, he's like, reasonable would be a stretch. So, I think it's important to go, hey, this was a nice step. Now, Stretch, we'll talk some offense. I thought Dak did a good job, and certainly watching those two receivers once they did get into the game. I mean, Pickens especially had a great game. But I think people would like to hear your initial thoughts. Quinnen Williams, to my eye, just from a number standpoint, even with his pressures, his sacks, appeared to be dominant in this game. Your first chance to put eyes on Quinnen Williams in a Cowboys uniform. What did you think of him and that entire defensive line's performance?
I mean, this is a defensive tackle group now that's got $20 million per and three guys. Guess what? They're going to be able to go in there and rotationally put two of those guys in at a time. It's going to eat up your center and your guard. Now, all of a sudden, what kind of game does Ezraku have? Pretty productive football game. What kind of game did Houston have? What kind of game did Clowney have? All because you got three big rotational tackles on the inside. There's no question. He's well coached, played at Alabama, first round draft pick. He was a load. I mean, they couldn't run the football at all. And the time that they tried to run it in there, I mean, they just got stoned on that safety. So that's the first thing I saw. The second thing defensively is a group that, quite frankly, played much better and more sound. Even when you see Murray get his hands on the ball, he's dropped to the correct level. You saw Bland play the tight end, Bowers one-on-one multiple times. You saw Kalen Carson get in the game and do some good things. I think Ravel's going to be a heck of a player. We know what Overshown can do. I think he was on a pitch count too to get some confidence in that knee and knowing that, it's one thing to go out and work on the ropes and do all those things. It's another thing to have confidence in it and be able to plant and run. So what they're playing 4 games in this 18-day or 19-day stretch right here. So I love what they did defensively, rotating guys in the football game and giving those guys a chance. But there's no question, back to what you had initially said, I mean, their inside defensive tackles are absolutely a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, and I was kind of interested in hearing your take on, how they deployed them. It seemed like I saw 5 on the defensive line. Like, how often can you go to something like that? And does that seem reasonable to you to play all 3 of those guys at the same time? I guess they did it some. I don't think it's something you want to do all the time. How did you, in terms of rotating people in there, how did you think they did in that? And how do you see that kind of working moving forward?
Yeah, they did it. I mean, I don't know that they played more a handful of snaps, true 5 down. They showed it, no question, but not more than a handful. And so what I like is you put that out there on film. Now, guess what? Philadelphia, they're going to have to look at that and work on that. And then they brought the 4 down rotational thing, which I thought was really, really effective. I think you see Jadeveon Clowney, he's in football shape. You see him chase down Geno Smith. I mean, you want to see those guys, Williams, Clowney, Fowler, Ezeraku, one-on-one outside against your tackles, because guess what? That's what's going to have to get you 1 or 2 critical stops when you're playing 2 really good football teams in a very short span right here.
All right, Stretch, sounds like the defense, in your estimation, it's hard not to give them around an A. At some point, Stretch, we got to get some more grades going because people still bring that up. They love when you give grades, but this was a different kind of game because of the tragedy and everything leading up to it. This was a game you just get through. You hope you play well. You hope you win. They did win, and it sets them up. Who knows what they'll do from here on out, but they do get it back to 4-5-1 on the offensive side of the ball. Stretch, you're someone that believes in you got to run the ball, have the run game that can help set up the pass. Javonte Williams ends up with over 90 yards. I saw Davis one time. They handed off to him. I thought he ran extremely hard. What did you think just of the overall play of the O-line in the run game?
Yeah, Hunter Lipke had a big conversion down in there. I mean, you want to see that. And the reason you want to see that is because you want to have and help your offensive line. You want to give your offensive line the confidence of knowing, hey, we're not going to sit back and pass protect every time. Sometime I'm going to let those guys come off the football. And that's exactly what they did. I like that you saw some different protections out of the Cowboys. You saw them pull the backside guard at times to come and help clean up in situations where they knew they were probably going to lose Crosby. Whenever you can run some 7-man protections and you can do those kind of things, it helps your offense immensely. And then that helps Dak get comfortable throwing those deep overs. He can layer that football in those situations. Running the football is the key. Now, I'm going to tell you, if you want to look for a grade and you want to look for somebody that's fixing to get a bunch of really good grades, I mean, Span Ford is a man. He is a man, and he is somebody that I look to absolutely start getting a lot more snaps, start taking some of this load off the Soonmaker. That's not to downplay him, but I'm saying Span Ford is so physical on the line of scrimmage. This offensive line played together tonight. They look like a group that had come out and been practicing together. You want to see that 5 big dancing bears up there and those guys really, really helping one another, coming off on the combination blocks. If they run some pin and pull stuff, which they like to do, you want to see all that. And that's exactly what you saw. And then a running back that absolutely ran the football with a real sense of urgency. Now, I'll tell you something. I've been openly critical at times about Jerry for not making offseason moves, not doing things in the offseason. Think about what they've done. Williams, Pickens is big time. I mean, big time. I mean, you want to give somebody an A+++. You give it to George Pickens. I mean, he plays the game with a real chip on his shoulder. He knows where the first down sticks are. He can finish runs. And even though he's got long levers, I mean, you see how he finished that run into the boundary. I mean, that's an infectious part of the football game that I think other guys feed off of. So where we've been kicking Jerry's rear end for not doing things, I mean, really good pickups with Pickens, Javonte Williams, Quinnen Williams, Logan Wilson. I mean, done a pretty good job.
What do you call that? You know, like we sometimes talk about running back. He put his foot in the ground, right? And that's a big kind of term with running backs. When a receiver does what he did on that touchdown, talking about Pickens, and he's running, and then he just absolutely kind of puts that foot in the ground and goes inside. Parcells used to say you're running on the safety. I remember him saying things like that. In the coaching business, scouting, whatever, what do you kind of call that? When a receiver out in the open field just does one of those hard inside moves like that. What's that?
Yeah, I mean, he's playing with the sense of urgency that you want to see him play with. I'll tell you, though, Matt, I mean, to me, what was more impressive, and obviously it was impressive when he went up the boundary and finished. He finished that catch. But I'm going to tell you something, on the touchdown, you can tell he plays with his eyes. He's running with his eyes. He sees guys flying across. He's not all herky-jerky. He just moves into where he feels good running it. When you have the confidence of doing that and playing with your eyes, nothing can replace that. And I think that's how he plays. He plays the game with his eyes wide open. He may have that hooded top on. I guarantee you his eyes are wide open.
It wouldn't be a bad time to go ahead and sign him to an extension, would it? Maybe get something done with him.
I mean, I just don't know. You know, he's got the same agent that Micah had, and I think Jerry's got him a little bad taste in his mouth from having dealt with that guy. So I'd like to say that, yeah, I'd like to see something be done, but I don't think that's going to be anything like a quick fix.
Okay, I like the point on Span Ford. I mean, you like some of those heavy tight ends and some of the big packages when those guys are in there blocking, especially the run game. And I know what you're talking about with Lipke because he got up there and put him in position to be able to go for it one time just by kind of splitting those two players. And that was good. So a lot of good things. I thought, Stretch, you would like this. I was monitoring what George W. Bush said to Peyton and Eli tonight, and they asked him. Peyton asked President Bush if he grew up thinking he'd follow his father into public service, and President Bush said, "No, I would have behaved a hell of a lot better in college."
I do kind of like that. Yeah,
he was funny. He was good. He was one of the best guests I've seen, and he came with some jokes. He was giving them a hard time about all the commercials they do and all that kind of stuff. So that was a pretty fun thing to watch all that play out. All right, Stretch. Now they get you get Philly. You got tough games coming up. You got Chiefs coming in. You know about that one on Thanksgiving. Detroit's in the mix there, although they don't look right now like they're like, anything just overwhelming, but some pretty tough teams coming up. What's your outlook moving forward with this sort of new look defense, and then the Cowboys maybe regaining a little bit of confidence?
Yeah, I think you carry what you saw tonight into a Sunday game where they're going to be honoring Marshawn Nealon with the pregame video. They'll have his locker set up. I think it's going to really hit home on this football team that now they're coming back home. Hey, what's it like when we used to ride home after a win and Nealon would be on this plane? And I think that momentum is going to carry into a week of practice here where I think you could see this team really, and maybe it's me wanting to see this team take a stride. And I'm talking about a stride defensively. I think Matt Eberflus, I've been as critical of him as I could be. He did a great job of getting those guys ready to play, getting them integrated into what he wanted to do, and then mixing up some of his pressures. So I want to see that continued forward. I really do. I'm hoping that they gave out the game ball and did what they needed to do. But I mean, you got a short week coming up here. I hope on this flight home they take a look and grade this film and immediately turn the page to the Eagles, because if you look at how they played the Eagles week 1, we know CD makes a couple catches, probably a different outcome to the football game. The Eagles are not great offensively right now. They're really good on defense. And that kind of plays into the Cowboys' hands. So you got to point to what they've done, the trades they've made. Can they get a couple more critical stops against the Eagles team? And I mean, they win that football game. Now you're a 5-5-1 football team, and you really got something. You really got something to talk about, and you really got something to build on. So I do foresee a very emotional team coming back in here and kind of riding that wave into AT&T Sunday and taking on an Eagles team that, you know what, I think they've got the confidence to say we can go play with these guys.
All right, Stretch, I appreciate it. You've had a busy day. This is a good win for the Cowboys, and I hope it brings them some measure of just a little bit of release, and just again this being together and being on the field can be somewhat of a sanctuary when you're going through a really difficult time, and that's one of the things that Dak Prescott voiced after the game. And I do think this team has really good leadership in that area, and we'll see how it turns out at home. Stretch, thank you, man. Great to have you on this evening.
Did Ed say he was looking forward to seeing you Sunday in the box?
I think so. I think it's probably one of Ed's favorite things is seeing me kind of at that buffet line. And Ed, they put Ed over there with some of the TV people now. And, he's probably complaining about his vantage point up there. But Ed does, yeah.
Yeah, I hope that if you are planning on going, get your ass in and get a haircut, Mosley, before you get into the restaurant.
I think people like the hair.
Let me tell you, I don't know who you're listening to, but get the selective crap off of you because it ain't working. Have a good night, Mosley. Sorry to bother you. Get your ass in for a cut before you get arrested for mopery. See you.
Mopery. Alleged mopery on the Doomsday Podcast. For Glenn Stretch Smith and Edward Werder, and the entire Rogue family, including Zach Burke, the Z-Man, who's been with me more than he would like today, as we've had a lot going on in the Rogue world. It's going to still be a long night, but we're going to get you all the links on Spotify, Apple, YouTube. Go, and by the way, sign up on that YouTube channel, and you can leave some comments, and we may answer them. I may answer them. Who knows what we'll do? But we would love to have you on that YouTube channel, which continues to grow, major growth. Okay, guys, that's really all I can leave you with tonight. Tremendous performance by the Dallas Cowboys against the dreadful Raiders team, and I got to see, I got to see Guy Fieri. I saw Derek Carr, but George W. was good. He was very funny. We're not going to get into if people don't like his politics or whatever. I don't care. He's funny and he's a good guy. And he's like kind of almost a friend because I've had him on my old radio show a couple of times, and he was very gracious, very funny, and just a cool guy to have on. All right, we'll leave politics out of it, but I admit that I like George W. Bush as a guy. All right, that's all we have for you. So from Northeast Dallas, this is Matt Mosley wishing you a pleasant evening. Good night, everybody.
We are Rogue Media Sports.